Okay, people have been asking for videos of us brewing. I think it's going to be pretty boring, but I'm going to give you a little glimpse of my brew day here. I'm making a Wee Heavy, which will eventually have 5 pounds of chanterelle mushrooms added to it to make a Wee Shroomy. I'm using 20 pounds of Simpson's Golden Promise, an ounce of midnight wheat just to darken up the color a bit. I'll be using an ounce, 1.1 ounces actually, of Northern Brewer hops to give me about 26 IBUs. I've got 7 gallons of strike water here ready to heat up. My water from my well is really good and relatively neutral, so I just had to add 2.5 grams of calcium chloride to get where I wanted to be. And over here you see the induction plate and pot that I'll be using, because you take the first gallon of runnings out of the mash tun and boil them down to like about a pint or so. So I'll be using the induction plate to do that while I do the rest of the mash here in the 70 quart cooler. Bigger than my normal 48 quart because of the 20 pounds of grain going into it and wanted some extra room. So there it is. I'm going to get the water heating up and I'll be back later. Okay, we're mashed in. I was going for 154. Why would you look at that? 155 there. 153 over there. All right. This is why I don't like having a fixed thermometer in the mash tun, because I can check different places in the mash to see what's going on. So, close that baby up, wait for 60 minutes. While that's going on, I'm going to come over here and get the alt beer out of this fermenter. It's fermenting on yeast 1728, and I made an alt to build up the yeast for this batch. I'm going to be using the entire slurry because this beer should end up being around 1090 or something like that. So that's the next task, is to get the alt out of that fermenter and into the keg, filling a nice 2-liter bottle there for a sample later this afternoon. And I'll be back in a while. Okay, I've got my mash running off, going into the kettle. I have my sparge water heated up, ready to go once the mash is run off. And over here, I've got a gallon of my first runnings coming to a boil on the induction plate. So far I haven't screwed anything up, but there's a lot of time left, so who knows what'll happen. I'll be back once the sparge is complete. The sparge is done. I've got 7 gallons here coming to a boil in the kettle, which is exactly what I was predicting, so I'm happy that I actually got that right. Once it comes to the boil, I'll put a bag of Northern Brewer hops in there. I don't usually use whole hops, but that's what I had on hand for Northern Brewer. So you put a nylon spoon across the top. I hang the hop bag like right in the middle. And that seems to work out pretty well for me. So once it comes to a boil, I'll do that and start timing my 60-minute boil. Over here, we have the first gallon of runnings coming up to a boil, and I'm going to boil that down until it gets to maybe a pint or two. We'll see how far I can get by the time the rest of the boil is done. My first runnings came to 1083, which is pretty good. It gives me a 94% mash efficiency. And so once the kettle over here just comes to a boil, to mix everything up so I can avoid stratification, I'll take a specific gravity reading in the kettle and see what I've got there. But based on my mash efficiency of 94%, I'm pretty jazzed. It's going the way it should. At least so far. I still have time to screw things up, so stand by. And I'm all done and cleaned up. Beer is in the fermenter, set at 55 degrees. I chilled it down to 57, so it's got, less than a degree to go to hit 55. I'll let that go for a couple weeks or so. Whenever it's done, then I will run it out of there into probably one of these Genesis fermenters back here, which I really like and are perfect for secondary additions. So I'll run it into there, add the 5 pounds of chanterelles, let it sit for a week or so, and voila, Wee Shroomy. Well, there you go. Time for a bit of a wrap-up here is the Airlock Burbles. I pitched it at 1:45 yesterday afternoon. Actually, I put the beer on the slurry that was in the fermenter. And it's 11:45 the next morning, so it's been, 22 hours? And obviously going strong. I got an OG of 1090 and 75% efficiency, which I figure is pretty good for a 1090 beer. I'll take it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I had to take my own advice yesterday. When people say, what's something you wish you would have known when you started brewing, I frequently say, keep calm, don't freak out, think about it. So yesterday, after I got all my runnings in the kettle and started my boil, I took a gravity reading, as I always do, to get the gravity out of the whole mash. And I came up with 1058, which was just unbelievably low. And I was about to freak out and start adding some candy syrup or something like that to bring the gravity up. And then I realized, hey, dummy, you have a gallon of 1082 wort over there on that side burner boiling down. That means that in 5 gallons of beer, that's going to add about 16 gravity points when I add it back in. And, well, duh, that puts me right back on track for what I was going for. And sure enough, when I got all done, like I said, I figured out my efficiency. It was 75%. So there you go. There's the Wee Shroomy underway. And the words of wisdom are, don't freak out. Think about it, dummy.